es más que complacer a un cliente. Es un punto de venta conectado al Internet con fibra óptica de Spectrum Business, que registra todas sus transacciones de forma segura y es respaldado con servicio al cliente, las 24 horas del día, 7 días a la semana, localizado en los Estados Unidos y técnicos locales. Es todo lo que importa. Obtén Business Internet Advantage gratis, para siempre, cuando te cambies a Spectrum y obtienes 4 líneas mobile. Visita spectrum.com/free for life para más información. Se aplican restricciones. Servicio no disponible en todas las áreas.
Hey, Trojan family, what's going on? Welcome back to the USC LAFB show here on the LAFB network. I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud. Hope everyone enjoyed your weekend. Hope everyone enjoyed that national championship last night. Indiana, team of destiny, Curt Cignetti taking down Miami. Perfect 16-0 season. One of the, maybe not even one of, arguably the biggest turnaround in all of sports history. Monumental. Tremendous. How does that, I guess, set the blueprint, if you will, for USC? Or how does it pertain to where USC is at in their progression as of now in 2026? Because I think there are two things to kind of take from this national championship team, specifically Indiana, but also a little bit from Miami as well. I think when it pertains to Indiana, you look at, you know, the turnaround and how quick it was. And that's what everyone will point to. Well, if Indiana can't do it in 2 years, why can't anyone else? Right? Like, look at their, now I think I think they're showing now they do have a lot of resources. But prior to kind of Cignetti getting here, like, look at the resources they had, look at the infrastructure, look at the support they had. I mean, an abysmal program for decades. I think they were actually the losingest program in college football history. To have this turnaround, why can't we? Why can't USC? Why can't Oregon? Why can't Michigan? Why can't all these with all these resources and being a blue blood do that? And one, you can. I think that's proven that you absolutely can. You just have to do it well and do it right. But I think when you look at Indiana, there's one side of the coin that I just don't know if it can be replicated, right? Like, there's one aspect of this that maybe Curt Cignetti is just a unicorn. And what he built and the amount of time that he built it is just, hey, everyone will strive for that, but maybe it's just, he's just better than everyone. He just has that, whatever, if you want to call it like the Nick Saban factor, you know, we can compare NIL versus NIL, all that is different, obviously, but he comes from that tree, from that ilk, that Saban tree, and maybe he just did it better than everyone else. I think there's that part of it. And there's the other part of it that I think can be replicated, and that's what we'll talk about today. So when you look at Indiana specifically, because everyone made a big deal, as they should have, of the lack of star talent, right? You look at, they had, I think, 7 total 4 stars, 0 5 stars on their roster. And then on the flip side of that, it was, well, the age, right? Their average age was like 24 years old, which is the average age of some NFL teams. So just being older than that. So what does that tell us there? And what it really shows is the importance of not just development, but the importance of continuity, especially in this transfer portal NIL age. It is so hard to keep a team together for long periods of time to grow together as a unit, right? Like, you can get a certain amount of players maybe to stick around. But with NIL, it's like you're always going to have a turnstile at certain spots. And we've seen some teams have success with that. But I think the vast majority, when you really look at Michigan, Ohio State, and now Indiana, the 3 national title winners, all of them had a vast amount of continuity. Now, there were certain positions, obviously, that changed. When you look at the quarterback position, Michigan, J.J. McCarthy, they had him the whole way through. But Ohio State brought in Will Howard from the portal the year before, and Indiana brought in Fernando Mendoza in the year before. So it's almost like, you know, the quarterback maybe is the one you need the least continuity with, the least development with, kind of get that, hey, who's the talented guy that fits our system, fits our culture, they can come in. But when you look at offensive line, when you look at defensive line, when you look at some in the secondary, when you look at some in the skill positions, like all three of these teams now have had pretty strong continuity across the board. You know, they've had different players come in here and there, obviously, different skill makers, different skill sets that they've been able to add. But they had that swath of remaining guys that have really come up in the system together and really then peaked at the right time, if you will, right? Michigan peaked all at the right time. When you look at that stout defensive line, when you look at the linebackers, when you look at what they were able to do with the running game and the offensive line, all those guys peaked in 23. And I don't mean peaked in a bad way, peaked because they hit their ceiling and then most of the team went to the NFL draft. Michigan had record number NFL draft picks. And now they're kind of trying to get back to that point. Obviously, they've had coaching turnover. Ohio State, same thing. Look at all of those positions in last year, peaked dominance. How many of those guys drafted in the first and second round? And then obviously they were able to retool really quickly with, some continuity at the coaching level and obviously high NIL and still being a very competitive team this year, making the college football playoff. When you look at Indiana, Cignetti brought a ton of guys from JMU. Now, obviously the talent discrepancy is massive from that to what teams like Oregon, like what USC, Texas Tech, all these schools can probably get. But they've played together for so long in the system, starting at JMU, coming over to Indiana last year, shocking everyone. But they had some luck with the schedule, had a pretty easy schedule last year. We all know that. But that continuity of being able to grow and build together and then come into this year, all basically return, no big losses. You're getting older. You're in the system. That is a weapon. That is almost a bigger weapon than getting some flash 5-star that has to come in, learn the ropes. Now, not saying that's what you shouldn't still go after if you need it, but that continuity is so massive. So when you look at USC now, and so this is the big thing of and we can talk Lincoln Riley, we can talk year 5, all that, but let's just talk here and now, right now. They're not going to be an old team. They have some vets returning, but they're not going to be Indiana. They're not going to be an average age of an NFL roster next year. They are banking on a lot of elite young talent. So you kind of have to you kind of look at it two ways, right? You can do the continuity of lesser star talent. Not saying these guys aren't talented, but they're not the rated 5 stars. And it's going to take some time to build that up. And then when you get to that peak, you can really do it. Or you need just a vast amount of young blue chip prospects that hopefully can hit the ground running quickly, be disciplined, and schematically just be better than everyone else. So USC is kind of looking at it as, okay, we're not resetting necessarily. Obviously, we've changed our philosophy a bit over the last 2 years of what we're doing with recruiting versus the portal. We're bringing in this massive class, guys that we think are going to contribute right away. And we believe that not only are they going to be good enough right off the bat to compete and get us to the playoff, because I think there is absolute belief in this building that they can make the playoff next year, even with this schedule. Now, do they think they can win the Natty next year? That might be, obviously you want to always believe that. That might be a little overreaching, but for sure, I think making the playoff is absolutely what this program believes it should be capable of, even with the youth they will have. But then the key then is keeping this philosophy, keeping this culture continued, keeping the continuity. So from a 35-person class, we just know you're not going to keep everyone next year with this new day and age of portal, right? If guys aren't going to play right off the bat, especially with that many, you're not going to keep them all. So everyone that's saying 35-person class, but half of it's going to be in the portal next year. I'm not saying half, but we'll probably see a good amount into the portal. That's the way it is. But the key is keeping the right players, the key contributors that now can stay in the program for 3 to 4 years. And then you just do that every year. And it's a consistent flow of really how it used to be before NIL, but now figuring out how to maximize that with NIL. If you're going to build it that way, that is the Indiana model now. Now, USC, I think, has the ability to still get like the blue chip players and hopefully keep that level up. But we're not going to consistently see like lesser skilled, how do I want to say this? Teams that don't have like the elite talent like Indiana this year. That's not going to be a consistent thing. That was a perfect timing. And I'm not taking anything away from Cignetti, that staff, and all those amazing players. Not taking anything away from them. But it was really the perfect storm and timing of them all hitting their peak, all at the continuity level they played at, and all at the age of just really being an old team at the right time. Next year is going to be fascinating for Indiana because they are going to virtually lose potentially 18 starters. Now, they've already got some big players in the portal they've got added. They've got a pretty good recruiting class coming in. I'm not saying they're going to be bad. Curt Cignetti is one of one. Dude proves he is an elite coach. So they are going to be good. I think they're going to be competitive every single year. But it'll be really interesting to see how quickly they can be, or I should say, if they can sustain this level of dominance with that massive turnover. Because it's going to look a lot like Michigan. Now, Michigan lost their head coach also, and their defensive coordinator, and their strength and conditioning coach. So not only did they lose a massive amount of starter players, they also lost half their coaching staff. And we saw what they've now been for 2 years, and obviously there was a mess with who they hired, and that's a whole nother story. But it's going to be interesting to see how Indiana, what kind of success they can sustain after, this monumental season they had. So, USC, I think, is looking at this model in a way of how they can create continuity, and the way you do that is in recruiting and development. So this is just a roundabout saying of like the strategy they've now implemented since Chad Bowden's got in, and we've talked about it, right? Majoring in recruiting, minoring in the portal. They really proved that this year with how they went about it, getting 35 players in the recruiting class, only adding 9 in the portal at, specific strategic positions. So now we just need to see it carried on the field, and the retention is going to be the huge key here moving into the next offseason. So we're going to see a lot of young players, a lot of talent. They have high expectations for a lot of these young guys. Talanoa Ely at linebacker being one of them. We've talked about the defensive line. We've talked about this young receiving core that's going to come in and have an impact right off the bat. So how they can keep that continuity now is going to be key. So I'm saying all this that I don't believe USC, and I know everyone gets sick of we're close. But I'm talking here and now. We can sit here and whine and complain all we want. But I think the key is you have to truly have a building strategy, and I don't think USC had that year 1 and 2. Or they did, but it wasn't what it is now. They've completely shifted ideologies. And so when you look at Cignetti doing what he did now in year 2, and no one likes to hear this, but it's just the facts, or at least the facts that I believe. If you look at this as Lincoln Riley in year 3, it does become a lot more palatable. It does become a lot more, okay, I see what we're building. We still didn't do it as quick as Cignetti in Indiana, but, we got, I think, a good nucleus. I see the vision. I see the strategy. And so now it's about letting that carry out and contain that continuity. And you're going to get sick of hearing me say that word. I've said it already so many times. But that's kind of the way to look at it. And I think that's the way we need to look at it, unless this year is a disaster. Because, again, I've said this before. Year 1 shocked everyone. Right? 11 wins, Heisman Trophy winner. USC is back. Year 2 was a disaster. I think that's an easy way to put it. Year 2 was a disaster. The defense was a disaster. The fact that Alex Grinch was retained, the fact that you still had Caleb Williams, but you had no true wide receiving threats on that team. It was a disaster. You go from 11 wins to 7 wins. This is what I believe, had Lincoln Riley not been given a 10-year deal off the bat, which is probably what they had to do to get him. Like, he had no need to leave Oklahoma. So the only way they were going to get him was a lot of cushion to come in and rebuild. He knew it was going to take some time. Even he has said they outperformed what they did in year 1. So they tried to replicate that in year 2, doing this kind of the same strategy, blew up in their faces. Had he gotten like a 5-year deal, 6-year deal, like a lot of coaches get, remember, now Bone was gone, Sosa was gone. There was at that time already kind of knowledge that the president would be retiring and changing of guard there. So you had just hired Jen Cohen at AD. I believe they probably would have moved on after year 2, saying, you know what, this year was a disaster. It's a new AD. They didn't have a GM at that time. Like, we'll just start fresh, rip the Band-Aid off now, and go a new direction. With 8 years left and $90 million in buyout, that was not feasible. That was not possible. So then it was about, okay, this year was a disaster. We're changing focus. We're changing strategy. And we got to dig our heels in and flip the script and totally turn things over. So then year 3, I know everyone hates it, but year 3 became year 1. You really tore things down for what you did in the real year 1. It was a completely different shift. You go 6-6. Then in year 2, which was this past year, you go 9-3. Now you're going into year 3. Like, if I would have told you, hey, you hire Lincoln Riley, he goes 6-6 in year 1, 9-3 in year 2, has the number 1 recruiting class going into year 3, I think everyone in USC land would be pretty happy with that. So I'm not trying to brainwash or that. I know we are in year 5, but think about that. It was a complete shift from 2 to 3. You couldn't get out of it. Couldn't move on from the coach. So it was about, okay, we're resetting, and that means we're resetting the clock also. So now you go into year 3 trying to build that continuity with this new strategy, with the new GM in place, with the new recruiting staff in place, and you try to replicate in a way what Indiana did by creating that continuity at every single level and not just constant turnover year in and year out. That's the goal. So we'll see how the season goes. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, massive year, tough schedule. We'll talk all about it. So I got a bunch of stuff coming out today. I wanted to just jump on kind of, hats off to Indiana. Hats off to Miami. Miami, I think, is a really good program, and they're going to be consistently good every single year. So I think the beauty of this new 12-team and probably soon to be 16 or even 24-team playoff, because there's been some hate about it, get team who's really deserving to get in. Miami proved they were good enough to be in the national championship game. Like, they proved that. In years past, they wouldn't have been in with 2 losses, right? Could have never gotten in with 2 losses. So that's the benefit of this new 12 team and soon to be probably 16 and 24 is, and I know it's different. People don't want college to be like the pros, but it allows teams to have a bad game and still come out and prove that they are deserving to be in the playoff or in the national championship. Miami absolutely proved they were deserving to make the playoff, and obviously then they went on to make the national championship game. So that's kind of the new beauty of the format. For all the negativity surrounding the sport, I think that's the good that comes out of it. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know if you do believe in the direction USC is going. Do you do believe that is attainable, what Indiana has done? Obviously, they shocked the world, and Curt Cignetti is a unicorn. So, he is one of one. But do you believe USC can strive for that with this new strategy they are implementing? So let me know in the comments. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Like I said, plenty more content coming out today. We got some future way too early preseason rankings already out from a bunch of different outlets. I'm going to talk about that later. Plus the final AP poll dropped. I don't know if you care, but we'll talk about that a little bit in one video. I got some more recruiting updates for you guys. Plus, we'll see if the DC announcement actually comes today. See if it actually comes today. So if that happens, we'll be on talking about that. So appreciate you, family, as always. Fight on. Hey, Trojan family, thank you so much for hanging out and watching the USC LAFB show. Before you go, let me tell you quickly about our friends over at Sleeper. Go right now, download the Sleeper app. It's the #1 sports app, not just for season-long fantasy, but they've got live pickers, they've got live stat updates, they've got a chat that you can chat with other users, plus the daily pick'em, which is a blast, or daily fantasy, whatever you want to call it. You go and pick 2 to 8 players across any sports. If you're talking USC, go choose Jade Mayava in his next matchup. Pick more or less passing yards, more or less touchdowns. You stack those, and you can win real money. When you go to make your first deposit, make sure you use our promo code USC LAFB. You're going to get a match deposit up to $100. Put in $100, you get $100 free to play with from Sleeper. Put in $10, they'll match you that $10, so now you're sitting at $20 to play with. But also, right now, for any new users, no deposit required. You get $20 free entry. You can stack both. You can get the $20 for free. Go make a deposit. Use USC LAFB, and now you've got a bunch of free money to play with right there on the Sleeper app. Check it out, Trojan family, and when you do, tell them the guys at the USC LAFB sent you.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.